Alrighty everyone, gather around the hologram projector. It's time for a history lesson, but don't worry, it won't be like your boring old history teacher who drones on about dates and dead people. No, this is the history of Battlefront 2, a game so epic it made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs. Our story begins in a studio far, far away known as Pandemic Studios. These guys were the Jedi Masters of their craft, creating games that were more addictive than death sticks. In 2005, they used the Force, and a lot of caffeine I assume, to give birth to Battlefront 2. This wasn't some run-of-the-mill sequel, oh no. This was the kind of sequel that made you say, damn, I need to get some more of that. Now, creating a game like Battlefront 2 wasn't as easy as bullseyeing womp rats in a T-16. It took a team of dedicated developers, countless hours of hard work, and probably a few sacrificial offerings to the Sith Lords. But in the end, they created a game that was more fun than the night out at Mos Eisley. The game was a hit, selling like hotcakes on a cold day on Hoth. Players couldn't get enough of the intense battles, the iconic characters, and the chance to live out their Star Wars fantasies. It was like a Christmas morning for Star Wars fans. Except instead of unwrapping presents, you were blasting drones and slicing up stormtroopers. But it wasn't all sunshine and Ewok dance parties. The game had its fair share of flaws. Some might even say it was as rough around the edges as a Wookiee's behind. But we didn't care. We were too busy having the time of our lives living out our Star Wars dreams. So that's the story of how Battlefront 2 came to be. It's a tale of passion, dedication, and a whole lot of Star Wars nerdiness. But our journey is just beginning, so strap in because we're about to jump to light speed and head straight into the golden age of Battlefront 2. Let me tell you, it's going to be one hell of a ride. And as we transition into this next scene, let's take a moment to laugh at the 2017 Battlefront 2. I mean, come on, who needs a sense of pride and accomplishment when you can have a sense of nostalgia and fun, am I right? But we'll get in that dumpster fire later. For now, let's bask in the glory of the good old days. Welcome back, you scruffy looking nerf herders. We're diving into the golden age of Battlefront 2, a time when the game ruled the galaxy like a benevolent Empire Palpatine, before he got all wrinkly and lightning happy. Now, when I say this game was good, I mean it was like finding out your father is a Jedi Knight and not a moisture farmer. The game was as smooth as Lando's pickup lines, and the graphics, well, let's just say they were a lot better than the CGI used to create Jabba the Hutt in Star Wars Special Edition. The game had everything a Star Wars fan could want. Want to play as a Jedi and slice through droids like a hot lightsaber through butter? You got it. Fancy taking the skies in an X-Wing and blasting TIE fighters out of the sky? No problem.
That ain't no problem.
Ever wondered what it would be like to be a rebel soldier on the front lines fighting against the might of the Empire? Well, Battlefront 2 let you live out that fantasy, minus the risk of being force choked by Darth Vader. But it wasn't just the gameplay that made Battlefront 2 so special. It was the attention to detail, the love and the care that Pandemic Studio put into every pixel. You could tell that this was a game made by Star Wars fans for Star Wars fans. It was like a love letter to the franchise written in binary code. And let's not forget about the multiplayer. Oh, the multiplayer. It was like the Mos Eisley Cantina of online gaming. A place where players from all over the galaxy would come together, have a few laughs, and blast each other into oblivion. It was chaotic, it was intense, and it was a whole lot of fun. Sure, the game had its flaws. The AI was about as intelligent as a Gungan on a bad day.
Bruh.
And the space battles could be as disorienting as a night out with a bunch of Ewoks. But we didn't care. We were too busy having the time of our lives. That's the golden age of Battlefront 2 in a nutshell. A time of epic battles, unforgettable moments, and a whole lot of Star Wars nerdiness. But like all good things, it had to come to an end. So buckle up because we're about to take a trip to the dark side. And trust me, it's not as fun as Darth Vader makes it out to be. And speaking of the dark side, let's take another moment to laugh at the 2017 Battlefront 2. I mean, seriously, who needs loot boxes and microtransactions when you have a game as awesome as Battlefront 2? It's like choosing to ride a Tauntaun when you've got a perfectly good Millennium Falcon. But enough about that, let's get back to the good stuff. Alright, it's time to take our rose-tinted visors and face the dark side of Battlefront 2. Yes, even this gem of a game had its flaws. I know, it's like finding out your father's actually a Sith Lord. Oh. Wait, first off, let's talk about the AI. Now, I've seen droids with more tactical intelligence than the AI in this game. I mean, seriously, these guys made stormtroopers look like sharpshooters. You could be standing right in front of them, waving your lightsaber around like a glow stick at a rave, and they'd still miss you. It was like they were aiming for a different galaxy. And then there were the space battles. Don't get me wrong, they were a blast, but they could be as confusing as a conversation with Yoda.
Emotional damage!
You'd be flying around minding your own business when suddenly you'd find yourself upside down spinning in circles with no idea which way was up. It was like trying to navigate through an asteroid field while blindfolded.
Deploying flashbang.
The game also had its fair share of bugs and glitches. Characters would get stuck in walls, vehicles would explode randomly, and let's not get started on the infamous Darth Maul glitch. It was like the game was haunted by the ghost of Jar Jar Binks. And let's not forget about the infamous Heroes system. Now, I love playing as a Jedi or Sith as much as the next guy, but the system was about as balanced as Anakin's mental state in The Revenge of the Sith. You'd have players camping the hero spawn points, waiting for their chance to play as their favorite character, while the rest of the team was left to fend for themselves. It was like a game of capture the flag, but the flag was a lightsaber-wielding maniac. But despite all of these flaws, we still loved the game. Why? Because it was fun, it was chaotic, and it was ridiculous and undeniably Star Wars. It was like a crazy dysfunctional family. Sure, it had its problems, but at the end of the day, you wouldn't change it for the world. So that's the dark side of the 2005 Battlefront 2. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and it's a heck of a lot better than the shiny microtransaction-filled mess that is Battlefront 2 2017. But we'll get to that later. For now, let's move on to the next chapter in our saga, the Clone Wars. It's time to dive into the Sarlacc pit that is the comparison between Battlefront 2 2005 and its 2017 remake. Now I know what you're thinking. BlisteringFaith, why do you do this to yourself? Well, someone had to do it, and I drew the short lightsaber. First off, let's talk about graphics. Now, I'm not one to judge a game by its cover, but let's be real. The 2017 version looks like it was made by a team of Ewoks on a sugar high. Everything is shiny, everything is smooth, and everything is so clean.
Flashback. End of flashback.
It's like they took the gritty, war-torn galaxy of Star Wars and gave it a makeover with a power washer. The 2005 version, on the other hand, had a charm to its pixelated graphic. It was like a beautiful, low-res painting of a galaxy far, far away. Next up, gameplay. The 2017 version tried to reinvent the wheel and ended up with a square. The classes were unbalanced, the maps were confusing, and don't even get me started on the loot boxes. It was like they took the fun, chaotic gameplay of the 2005 version and replaced it with the grind fest. The 2005 version, while not perfect, had a simplicity to it that made it fun. It was like a game of laser tag in space. And then there's the content. The 2017 version had less content than a Stormtrooper's aim. Sure, they added more with updates, but it was too little, too late. The 2005 version, on the other hand, was packed with content. It had a variety of maps, a plethora of characters, and a campaign that was actually worth playing. It was like a buffet of Star Wars goodness. But perhaps the biggest difference between the two is the soul. The 2005 version had a soul. It was made by fans for fans. It was a love letter to the Star Wars universe. The 2017 version, on the other hand, felt soulless. It was made by a corporation for profit. It was a love letter to microtransactions. But let's not dwell on the past. Instead, let's look to the future, or rather, the heroes and villains of our beloved game. Stay tuned for the next scene where we'll dive into the iconic characters of Battlefront 2 2005, and trust me, it's going to be a blast. Now, I know what you're thinking. BlisteringFaith, are you really going to talk about every single character? Well,
nope.
Because we'd be here until the next Star Wars trilogy is released, but I will talk about the ones that left a mark, for better or for worse. First up, we have the poster boy of the Star Wars universe, Luke Skywalker. Now, in the 2005 version, Luke was a force to be reckoned with. He was fast, he was agile, and his lightsaber was like a hot knife through butter. In the 2017 version, however, Luke was, well, let's just say he was as useful as a screen door on a Star Destroyer. Next up, we have Darth Vader. In the 2005 version, Vader was a beast. He was slow, sure, but he hit like a rancor on steroids. His force choke could take out an entire squad of rebels, and his lightsaber throw was like a boomerang of death. In the 2017 version, however, Vader was, let's just say, as intimidating as a Jawa with a water pistol. And then there's Boba Fett. In the 2005 version, Boba was a fan favorite. He had a jetpack, he had a flamethrower, and he had a blaster that could snipe enemies from across the map. In the 2017 version, however, Boba was as effective as a stormtrooper at a shooting range. But perhaps the most iconic character of Battlefront 2 2005 was the humble stormtrooper. Yes, they couldn't hit the broadside of a bantha, and yes, they died faster than a red shirt in Star Trek, but there was something endearing about them. They were the underdogs, the cannon fodder, the unsung heroes of the Galactic Empire. In the 2017 version, however, the stormtroopers, they were as memorable as a background extra in the cantina scene. So there you have it, the heroes and villains of Battlefront 2. They were flawed, they were unbalanced, but they were fun. At the end of the day, isn't that what gaming is all about? But don't go anywhere, because up next we're going to dive into the game mode of Battlefront 2 2005, Galactic Conquest. And trust me, it's gonna be out of this world. Alright, it's time to talk about the crown jewel of Battlefront 2, Galactic Conquest. Now, for those of you who don't know, Galactic Conquest was a game mode where you could take control of either the Galactic Empire or the Rebel Alliance and fight for control of the galaxy. It was like a game of chess, but with Star Destroyers and X-Wings. Now, what made Galactic Conquest so special was the strategy involved. You had to decide which planets to attack, which units to recruit, and which bonuses to use. It was like playing a game of Risk, but with lightsabers and blasters instead of dice and cards. And let's not forget about the battles themselves. Whether you're storming the beaches of Kashyyyk, defending the trenches of Hoth, or battling for control of the Death Star, every battle felt epic. It was like being in a Star Wars movie, but again without the risk of being force choked by Darth Vader. But perhaps the best part of Galactic Conquest was the sense of progression. Every victory brought you a step closer to ruling the galaxy, and every defeat was a setback that had to be overcome. Now, you might have been wondering, BlisteringFaith, what about the Galactic Conquest mode in the 2017 version? Well, let's just say it was as exciting as watching paint dry on a Star Destroyer. It was a stripped down, simplified, and lacked the depth and complexity of the 2005 version, and much less strategy and much more microtransactions. Now let's transition into space battles. I don't know about you, but when I think of Star Wars, I think of epic space battles. I think of X-Wings and TIE Fighters, Star Destroyers, and calamari cruisers, the Millennium Falcon, and the Slave One. And let me tell you, Battlefront 2 2005 delivered on that front. And the space battles in Battlefront 2 weren't just about dogfights, they were about strategy. You had to decide whether to focus on taking out enemy fighters, bombing enemy capital ships, or boarding enemy frigates. It was like playing a game of rock, paper, scissors, but with lasers and proton torpedoes. Let's not forget about the sense of scale. Whether you were flying through the debris of a space battle, dodging asteroids in an asteroid field, or weaving through the superstructure of a Star Destroyer, every battle felt epic. But perhaps the best part of the space battles was the freedom. You could fly anywhere, go anywhere, do anything. You could dogfight with enemy fighters, bomb enemy capital ships, or board enemy frigates. You could even land in the enemy's hangar, hop out of your ship, and start blasting away. It was like playing a game of Grand Theft Auto, but with X-Wings and TIE Fighters instead of cars and motorcycles. Now you might be wondering, what about the space battles in the 2017 version? Let's just say they were as exciting as a Senate hearing on trade regulations. They were linear, scripted, and lacked the freedom and depth of the 2005 version. Alright, let's shift gears here and talk about the unsung heroes of Battlefront 2, the modders. Now, if you're not familiar with mods, they're basically fan-made additions or changes to a game. They can range from simple tweaks to complete overhauls, and let me tell you, the mods for Battlefront 2 were something else. First off, we have to talk about the maps. The modding community created hundreds of new maps for Battlefront 2, from iconic Star Wars locations like Coruscant and Mustafar to completely original creations. It was like getting a new Star Wars movie every week, but without the disappointment of the prequels. Then there were the character mods. Ever wanted to play as Darth Revan from Knights of the Old Republic? Or maybe Ahsoka Tano from the Clone Wars? Well, thanks to modding, you could. They even added characters from the 2017 version of Battlefront 2, which was like adding a fresh coat of paint to a rusted car. But perhaps what was the most impressive was the total conversions. These mods completely transformed the game, adding new gameplay mechanics, graphics, and sound effects. It's like getting a brand new Star Wars game, but without paying $80 for it. Now you might be thinking, why would I play a modded version of a 17, 18-year-old game when I could play the shiny new 2017 version? Well, let me tell you, the mods for Battlefront 2 2005 offered more depth, creativity, and fun than the 2017 version could ever hope to. It was like choosing between a home-cooked meal and a burger from McDonald's. Sure, the burger might look good, but it's not going to satisfy you in the long run. So there you have it, the mods of Battlefront 2. They kept the game alive, they kept it fresh, and they kept it fun. So, we've talked about the history, the gameplay, the flaws, and the mods of Battlefront 2. But what about its legacy? How did this 17-year-old game influence the Star Wars games that came after it? First off, let's talk about the obvious, the 2017 version of Battlefront 2. Now, I know I've been ragging on this game throughout the video, but let's be honest, it wouldn't exist without the 2005 version. EA would have never come up with something this original. The original Battlefront 2 set the standard for Star Wars multiplayer games, and the 2017 version tried to follow in its footsteps, keyword being tried. But the influence of Battlefront 2 2005 goes beyond just the Battlefront series. It set a new standard for Star Wars games in general. It showed that a Star Wars game could be more than just a movie tie-in or a simple action game. It could be a deep, immersive, and fun experience that made you feel like you were part of the Star Wars universe. And let's not forget about the impact that Battlefront 2 had on the gaming community. It inspired countless fan projects, from mods to fan films to cosplay. It created a community of passionate fans who loved the game and wanted to keep it alive. And that community is still going strong today, more than 15 years after the game's release. But perhaps the most important legacy of Battlefront 2 is the lessons it taught the gaming industry. It showed that gamers want deep, immersive, and fun experiences. They want games that respect the source material and offer a wide variety of gameplay options. And most importantly, they want games that are made with passion and care, not just as a quick cash grab. Battlefront 2 is a game that left a legacy and an impact on the Star Wars franchise and the gaming industry as a whole. But we're not done yet. Now we're going to talk about why it's still loved today. And let me tell you, it's not just because of nostalgia. So stay tuned, and may the Force be with you. Now you might be wondering, BlisteringFaith, why are we still talking about a game that's older than the concept of dabbing? Well, dear viewer, it's because Battlefront 2 is like that old reliable car your grandpa refuses to sell. Bruh. It's got its quirks, it's got its issues, but it's really got character. The game has managed to stand the test of time, not just because of its gameplay, but because of the community that surrounds it. The dedicated players who still log in every day, the modders who keep adding new content, and the nostalgia junkies who just can't let go of the past. It's a game that's more than just a game. It's a piece of history, a testament to what games could be before microtransactions and loot boxes took over. And let's not forget about the sheer variety of gameplay that Battlefront 2 offers. From the epic space battles to the intense ground combat, there's something for everyone. And with the ability to play as your favorite Star Wars characters, it's like being a kid in a candy store. Except the candy is lightsabers and blaster rifles, and the store is a galaxy far, far away. But perhaps the most compelling reason why Battlefront 2 is still up today is because it represents a simpler time in gaming. A time when games were about fun, not profit. A time when developers poured their heart and soul into a project, not just to make a quick buck, but to create something truly special. And in the case of Battlefront 2, they succeeded. So there you have it, Battlefront 2. A game that stood the test of time, a game that brought joy to millions, and a game that, despite its age, still manages to be a heck of a lot of fun. And as for the 2017 remake, well, let's just say that some things are better left in the past. And with that, we conclude our journey through the galaxy of Battlefront 2. It's been a wild ride filled with laughter, tears, and a whole lot of blasted fire. But as they say in the Star Wars universe,
The Force will be with you, always.
and so will Battlefront 2. So until next time, this is BlisteringFaith signing off. May the Force be with you. And remember, no matter how shiny and new something may be, sometimes the classics are just better, especially when it comes to Battlefront 2. And as a final word to the 2017 Battlefront 2, well, let's just say, you're as welcome here as a sandpaper droid in a Tatooine sandstorm.